The signal arrived on a quiet Tuesday. Lieutenant Jun Kim was halfway through his shift at Outpost Epsilon when his monitor began flashing. He leaned forward, adjusting his headset as he studied the strange pattern pulsing across his screen. "That's odd," he muttered, running the standard analysis protocols. The computer returned nothing familiar. This wasn't a human transmission, nor was it any recognized cosmic phenomenon. June hesitated only briefly before pressing the alert button. If this was nothing, he'd face mockery from his colleagues. If it was something, well, that possibility made his heart race. Director Hannah Park arrived minutes later, her usual composed expression giving way to visible surprise as she examined the data. "How long has this been transmitting?" she asked, eyes not leaving the screen. "Signal strength suggests at least 3 days, Director. It's repeating on a cycle." Hannah nodded slowly. "Contact Earth Command. Flag it as potential first contact protocol. And June, good catch." Within hours, Outpost Epsilon transformed from a quiet monitoring station to a hub of frantic activity. Scientists and military personnel arrived via emergency transport, bringing specialized equipment and expertise. Dr. Ji-Yun Lee, Earth's leading xenolinguistics expert, took command of the decoding effort. She set up her equipment in the station's largest lab, surrounded by screens displaying various analyses of the signal. "It's definitely artificial," she explained to Hannah and the military observers. "The pattern is too regular, too structured to be natural. Someone made this." For days, Ji-Young barely slept, sustaining herself on caffeine and determination. Her team worked in shifts, feeding the signal through increasingly complex algorithms. On the 7th day, Ji-Young burst into the command center, her eyes bright despite her exhaustion. "We've got something," she announced. "The signal contains mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric progressions. It's a foundation for communication." 2 weeks later, they had established basic translation parameters. The message became clearer: coordinates, repeated warnings, and a name, Velsari. "They're asking for help," Ji-Young explained to the assembled officials. "From what we can piece together, they're fleeing from something called the Kryvax Dominion." Captain Daeho Khan was eating dinner when his communication device buzzed with top priority clearance. The message was brief: report to Earth Command immediately. His meal forgotten, he rushed to headquarters. Admiral Young sat at the head of the table, surrounded by military and scientific advisors. The room fell silent as Daeho entered. "Captain Khan," the admiral began, "how quickly can the Horizon be ready for deep space deployment?" Daeho considered. 48 hours, sir." "Why?" The admiral gestured to Dr. Ji-Yun Lee, who activated a holographic display showing the translated alien message. "This is a distress call," she explained. "The Velsari describe themselves as peaceful explorers being hunted by a species called the Kryvax. From what we can tell, it's systematic extermination." "And we're going to help them?" Daeho asked. "First, we're going to find them," the admiral replied. "Your ship is the fastest in the fleet. Your mission is to locate the source of this transmission and establish contact." Preparations moved at lightning speed. The USV Horizon, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, was stocked with supplies and weapons. Though primarily designed for scientific missions, it carried defensive capabilities that had never been tested in actual combat. As the crew prepared for departure, Daeho studied the dossiers of the specialists joining his regular team. Navigator Sujin Choi was the best pilot in the fleet. Commander Junho Lee had written the tactical manual for potential alien encounters. Ambassador Do-hyun Choi specialized in cultural diplomacy. On the launch day, Earth watched as the Horizon left orbit. News stations broadcast the departure around the clock, humanity's first intentional journey to meet alien life. "Remember," Admiral Young told Daeho in their final briefing, "this is first and foremost a diplomatic mission. Establish contact, assess the situation, report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." As the Horizon accelerated to FTL speed, Daeho looked at his crew, their faces showing a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We're making history today," he said simply. Whatever we find out there, we'll face it together. None of them could have predicted what awaited at those distant coordinates, or how their discovery would forever change humanity's place among the stars. The horizon cut through space toward the coordinates embedded in the Velsari distress signal. On the bridge, Captain Daeho Kong studied the star charts while his crew performed final systems checks. After 3 weeks of travel, they were close to their destination. "Captain, we'll reach the coordinates in 5 minutes, Navigator Sujin Choi announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Daeho nodded. "All hands to alert status. We don't know what we're jumping into." Commander Junho Lee activated the ship-wide communication system. "All personnel, prepare for arrival at destination." This is not a drill. The bridge crew fell silent as the countdown began. Daeho felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Humanity's first contact with alien life would happen under his command, and it involved a distress call. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The starfield outside the viewport suddenly stabilized as the horizon returned to normal space. What they saw made everyone freeze in shock. Before them, a battle raged. Dozens of sleek, silver vessels with graceful curves were desperately maneuvering away from larger, angular ships that resembled predatory insects. The elegant ships, presumably belonging to the Velsari, were clearly outmatched. "Sensors detect multiple energy weapon discharges," reported the science officer. The Velsari ships appear to be primarily defensive in design. "They're trying to escape, not fight." As they watched, one of the Velsari ships erupted in a silent explosion, debris scattering across the battlefield. "Those must be the Kryvax," Junho said, pointing to the aggressive vessels. "They're not just chasing, they're hunting." Daeho's orders came without hesitation. Battle stations. Shields at maximum. Target the nearest Kryvax vessel with warning shots. His tactical officer looked up in surprise. "Sir, our orders were to observe and report." "Those were our orders before we found ourselves in the middle of a massacre," Daeho cut in. "We can't stand by and watch. Humans don't do that." The horizon moved forward, its weapons systems powering up for the first time outside of training exercises. The human vessel, though smaller than the Kryvax warships, carried technologies that had never been encountered in this part of space. "Transmit on all frequencies," Daeho ordered the communications officer. "Tell the Kryvax to cease fire immediately or face consequences." No response came. Instead, one of the Kryvax ships broke away from the attack and turned toward the horizon, clearly identifying it as a new threat. "They're charging weapons," Junho reported. "Fire defensive pattern, targeted disabling shots only," Daeho ordered. The horizon's energy weapons lanced out, striking the Kryvax vessel with surgical precision. The alien ship shuddered, its weapons powering down as systems failed. The effect on the battlefield was immediate. All combatants paused as if in shock. The humans had just accomplished what the Velsari couldn't, they had disabled a Kryvax attack ship without destroying it. "The Velsari are hailing us," the communications officer announced. A face appeared on the main screen, humanoid but clearly alien, with silvery skin and large, expressive eyes. "Unknown vessel," the alien spoke in halting, clearly translated words. "You, help us?" "Why?" "We received your distress call," Daeho replied simply. "We came to help." The Velsari's expression showed what might have been relief. "The Kryvax will attack you now. They show no mercy to those who resist." As if confirming these words, the remaining Kryvax ships changed formation, moving to surround the horizon. "Tactical assessment?" Daeho asked. Junho studied his displays. 7 Kryvax warships, all larger than us. But their weapons technology seems less advanced. "Our shields should hold if we're smart." "The Velsari?" Daeho asked. 23 ships remaining, mostly damaged. Many appear to be civilian vessels. Daeho made his decision. "Position us between the Kryvax and the Velsari fleet. Open a channel to the Kryvax." When the connection opened, a harsh, angular face appeared on screen. The Kryvax commander's eyes were cold and predatory. This is Captain Daeho Kong of the United Systems Alliance vessel Horizon. We represent Earth and humanity. We demand you cease your attack on the Velsari immediately. The Kryvax made a sound that might have been laughter. Step aside, new prey. Your primitive vessel is of no concern to the Dominion. Daeho's expression hardened. We will not step aside while you slaughter innocents. This is your final warning. The Kryvax commander cut the transmission. Seconds later, all 7 warships opened fire simultaneously. But they had underestimated human technology. The Horizon's shields flared but held against the barrage. Then, the human ship responded with precise, devastating counterfire. 2 Kryvax ships lost propulsion. A third spun out of control as its weapons systems overloaded. The others began backing away, clearly reassessing the threat. They're retreating, Junho announced with disbelief in his voice. Daeho watched as the Kryvax fleet regrouped and then jumped to FTL, leaving their disabled ships behind. Captain, the communications officer called, the Velsari are hailing us again. They're asking permission to approach. Daeho nodded, suddenly aware of the historic moment unfolding. Tell them they're welcome. And let Earth Command know, humanity just made first contact. The Velsari medical ship docked with the Horizon in a gentle connection of airlocks. Captain Daeho Kong stood ready to greet them, accompanied by Medical Officer Eun Ji-yoon and Ambassador Do-hyun Choi. None of them knew exactly what to expect from their first face-to-face meeting with an alien species. The airlock doors slid open to reveal 3 Velsari. Up close, their silvery skin had a subtle iridescence, and their large eyes shimmered with an inner light. The tallest stepped forward with a graceful gesture that might have been a bow. I am lead diplomat Talon, the alien said through a translation device. You have saved many lives today. The Velsari offered deepest gratitude. Do-hyun returned the gesture. We are honored to meet you. We received your distress call and came to help. Talon's expression changed subtly. Your species is unknown to us. How did you defeat Kryvax ships so easily? Even the oldest spacefaring races fear their technology. We've never encountered either of your peoples before, Daeho explained. We're relatively new to deep space travel. The Velsari exchanged looks of surprise. New? Yet you challenged the Dominion without hesitation? Eun-ji spoke up. We saw ships in danger. We couldn't just watch. Talon seemed moved by this. Then we have much to share. Would you permit us to show you why we fled? It is difficult to explain with words alone. The captain nodded, and the group moved to the Horizon's conference room. There, Talon placed a small crystal device on the table. It projected a 3-dimensional image that filled the room with light. Our homeworld, Talon explained as a beautiful planet appeared, covered in shimmering cities and vast oceans. The image shifted, showing Kryvax ships descending from the sky. What followed made the humans recoil in horror. Cities burned. Velsari were herded into processing centers. Some were executed on the spot while others were loaded onto transport ships. Children were separated from parents. The lucky ones escaped on whatever ships they could find. This happened 1 lunar cycle ago, Talon said quietly. We were a peaceful research civilization. We had no significant military. The Kryvax came without warning or provocation. Eun-ji's face had gone pale. How many survived? From a population of billions, perhaps 2 million escaped. The rest? Talon's voice faltered. Do-hyun leaned forward. But why? What do the Kryvax want? Talon touched the crystal again. New images appeared, vast mining operations on stripped planets, factory worlds filled with enslaved workers, laboratories where living beings were subjected to experiments. The Dominion exists to consume, Talon explained. Resources, technology, labor, even genetic material. They conquer, strip worlds bare, and move on. They've done this for centuries. More images filled the room, different species, different worlds, but the same pattern of conquest and exploitation. The humans watched in growing horror as the scale of the atrocities became clear. These are recordings shared by other refugee species, Talon continued. The Nathari, whose world was stripped for minerals. The Levidan, enslaved for their engineering skills. The Zurath, harvested for biological components. Deho's voice was tight with controlled anger. How many species has this happened to? 27 that we know of. Some were completely exterminated. Ambassador Duhyun looked stunned. And no one has stopped them? No alliance of worlds? Talon's gesture conveyed sadness. The Kryvax choose their targets carefully, isolated worlds, younger civilizations. When more advanced races noticed, it was dismissed as distant border conflicts. By the time patterns emerged, the Dominion was too powerful to challenge directly. Medical Officer Unji pointed to a particular image, children of various species in some kind of facility. What happens to the young ones? Talon hesitated before answering. They are considered most adaptable. They become workers or subjects for the enhancement programs. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Deho stood up abruptly, his decision made. Ambassador, prepare a full report for Earth Command. Include everything the Velsari have shown us. Medical Officer, coordinate with their healers to help the injured. I want a complete assessment of the refugee fleet's condition. What will your people do? Talon asked, hope and uncertainty mingling in their voice. Deho looked the alien directly in the eyes. First, we'll help your survivors. Then. He paused, knowing his next words would likely change the course of human history. Then we'll make sure Earth understands exactly what the Kryvax Dominion is. I cannot speak for all humanity, but I know we will not stand by while this continues. As the images continued to play around them, scenes of suffering across dozens of worlds, a new determination settled over the human crew. They had come seeking first contact. They had found instead their first interstellar moral challenge. That night, as the Horizon's powerful transmitters sent the evidence back to Earth, Duhyun worked tirelessly on his report. The final line read simply, we now face a choice that will define humanity's place among the stars. The Kryvax Dominion must be stopped, and we may be the only ones willing to stop them. The emergency session of the United Systems Alliance Council stretched into its third hour. Representatives from Earth and all human colonies sat in tense silence as they watched the final recording from the Velsari archives. When the lights came up, Admiral Tewushin stood before them, his uniform crisp despite having been awake for nearly 48 hours. That concludes the evidence gathered by the USV Horizon, he said, his voice steady. Captain Kong awaits our response. As do the survivors of 27 species who have suffered under Kryvax rule. President Nina Son looked around the council chamber. I opened the floor for discussion. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Representative Han stood, his face grim. We are a young species among the stars, he began. We have only recently established our colonies beyond our home system. Some might say this conflict is not ours. That we should focus on protecting our own borders. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. However, Han continued, I cannot unsee what we have witnessed today. If we turn away now, knowing what we know, we abandon not just the Velsari but everything humanity claims to stand for. The Mars colony representative spoke next. The Kryvax don't even know where Earth is. We could stay hidden, build our defenses. For how long? Interrupted Admiral Shin. The Horizon's intervention is already known to them. They will come looking for us eventually. Better to face them on our terms than to wait in fear. The debate continued for hours. The economic costs. The military risks. The moral imperatives. Finally, President Song called for a vote. The result was clear, 87-13 in favor of intervention. Then it is decided, President Song announced. The United Systems Alliance formally declares the Kryvax Dominion an enemy of humanity and all free peoples of the galaxy. Admiral Shin, you have full authorization to mobilize our forces. Within days, humanity's peaceful existence transformed. Shipyards that had been building colony vessels and science platforms switched to producing warships. Defense systems mothballed since the last Earth conflict were reactivated and upgraded. On Luna Base, Admiral Shin established the Strategic Command Center. Maps of known Kryvax territory covered the walls, with tactical analysts working around the clock to identify vulnerabilities. Their primary advantage is numbers, explained Minho Bay, the lead tactical coordinator. They've had centuries to build their fleet. But their technology has stagnated. They haven't needed to innovate because they only attack weaker civilizations. And their weaknesses? Asked Admiral Shin. Arrogance, Minho replied without hesitation. They don't expect resistance. Their supply lines are extended. And most importantly, they rule through fear. The enslaved worlds might rise up if given the chance. From across human territory, volunteers flooded the military recruitment centers. Young people who had never considered military service now stood in line for hours to enlist. In Earth's factories, production lines ran day and night. The industrial capacity that had been directed toward improving life on Earth and the colonies now focused entirely on preparing for war. Captain Kong and the Horizon continued their mission, moving between refugee fleets and gathering allies. Some species offered advanced medical knowledge. Others contributed star charts marking Kryvax patrol routes. The Velsari themselves shared their considerable expertise in FTL communications. 6 weeks after the declaration, Admiral Shin stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, looking out at the assembled fleet. Over 300 vessels of various sizes had gathered at the rally point just beyond Pluto's orbit. It was the largest military force humans had ever created. Signal from Earth Command, Admiral, his communications officer reported. President Song wishes to address the fleet. The president's face appeared on screens throughout every ship. Her expression was solemn but determined. Soldiers, sailors, and pilots of humanity, she began. You embark today on a mission unlike any in our history. You go not to conquer, not for resources or territory, but to liberate. To end suffering. To stand against tyranny among the stars. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Some will say we are too young a species for this responsibility. That we should tend to our own affairs. I say that humanity's greatest strength has always been our capacity for moral outrage in the face of injustice. We see suffering, and we cannot turn away. Throughout the fleet, crews stood at attention, absorbing her words. The Kryvax dominion has existed unchallenged for too long. They believe their power absolute. Today, you will show them otherwise. Today, you carry with you not just the hopes of humanity, but of countless beings suffering under Kryvax rule. Admiral Shin looked at his bridge crew, seeing determination in every face. The path ahead will not be easy, President Song continued. But you do not travel it alone. Remember that with every engagement, with every world you free, our alliance grows stronger. Go with courage. Go with purpose. And come home to us when your task is done. As the transmission ended, Admiral Shin gave the order that would echo across human history. All ships, prepare for jump. Operation Liberation begins now. The space around Proxima Station blazed with weapons fire. Admiral Tae-woo Shin stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching tactical displays as the largest battle in human history unfolded. 3 months of smaller engagements had led to this moment, the assault on the Kryvax Central Command Hub. Status report, he ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. Second and third battle groups have engaged the outer defenses, replied his executive officer. Captain Kong and the Horizon are leading the strike team toward the central docking bay. The plan was bold but necessary. While the main fleet drew Kryvax attention, a smaller force would infiltrate the station itself. Their mission, disable the control systems that coordinated the entire Dominion fleet. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Daeho Kong checked his tactical gear one last time. Beside him, a mixed team of humans and liberated aliens prepared for boarding action. Remember, we need Science Officer Hyun-woo Park to reach the central computer core, Daeho reminded them. Everyone else focuses on clearing the path and protecting him. The horizon shuddered as it took fire from the station's defenses. Through the viewports, Daiho could see other ships from the Liberation Fleet, some human, some Valsari, some belonging to other species that had joined their cause. Approaching Docking Bay 3, Navigator Sujin announced. Defenses are heavy. Evasive pattern Delta, Daiho ordered. All weapons, focus fire on those turrets. The horizon danced between energy beams, returning fire with precision. A path opened, and Sujin guided the ship into the massive docking structure. Boarding team, prepare for deployment, Daiho commanded. The moment the ship touched down, the bay doors opened and the team rushed out. They met immediate resistance, Kryvax soldiers in heavy armor firing energy weapons. Cover formation, shouted Commander Junho, raising his shield. The team moved in practiced unison, combining human tactical training with alien technologies they'd adapted over the past months. Across the station, similar scenes played out as other boarding teams created distractions. Admiral Shin had planned carefully, the Kryvax couldn't defend every entry point. Meanwhile, in space, the main battle raged. The Kryvax had committed their elite forces, led by their feared Imperial warships. These massive vessels had destroyed countless civilizations, but they had never faced human ingenuity combined with the desperate courage of the liberated species. Admiral, called a tactical officer on the Defiance, the Kryvax flagship is moving to attack position. Shin nodded. As expected. Signal all ships, execute maneuver breaking chain now. Across the battlefield, the Allied fleets suddenly changed formation. Ships that appeared to be retreating now turned to attack. Others jumped to new positions, confusing Kryvax targeting systems. It was a tactic humans had developed after studying months of Kryvax battle data. The Dominion relied on predictable enemy responses. Inside the station, Daiho's team fought their way through level after level. They suffered losses, 3 humans and 2 Valsari fell to enemy fire. But they pressed on, guided by maps provided by escaped slaves. The central core is just ahead, Hyunwoo said, checking his scanner. But that doorway is heavily guarded. Daiho assessed the situation. A dozen Kryvax elite guards stood between them and their objective. Behind those guards would be the Kryvax leadership, the commanders who had ordered the destruction of countless worlds. New plan, Daiho decided. Junho, take half the team and create a diversion at the secondary entrance. The rest of us will go through the maintenance tunnels. The diversion worked. As Junho's team engaged the main force, Daiho led Hyunwoo and 3 others through narrow service corridors. They emerged directly into the central computer core, the heart of Kryvax operations. 3 Kryvax technicians turned in surprise. Daiho didn't hesitate, firing stunning shots that left them unconscious. Secure the room, he ordered. Hyunwoo, do your work. The science officer rushed to the main console. For months, he had been developing a program specifically for this moment, a quantum disruptor that would override Kryvax control systems. I need 3 minutes, Hyunwoo said, connecting his device. You have 2, Daiho replied as alarms began blaring. Outside, the space battle reached its climax. The Kryvax flagship launched its main weapon, a planet-killer beam that had destroyed the Valsari homeworld. But Admiral Shin had anticipated this. Deploy countermeasure, he ordered. A small, specialized vessel moved into position, activating a deflection field developed by combining human and Valsari technologies. The beam struck the field and scattered, harmlessly dissipating into space. For the first time in centuries, the Kryvax's ultimate weapon had failed. In the control room, Hyunwoo's fingers flew across the interface. Upload complete in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. The lights throughout the station flickered. On every Kryvax ship, control systems suddenly went dark. It's working, Hyunwoo breathed. Daiho activated his communicator. Admiral Shin, Phase 1 complete. All Kryvax systems are compromised. Across thousands of ships and hundreds of enslaved worlds, the same message began broadcasting in every language: the Kryvax Dominion has fallen. You are free. As the Kryvax fleet drifted powerless, the liberation forces moved in. Not to destroy, but to accept surrender. Humanity's first interstellar war would end not with extermination, but with justice. 3 days later, representatives from 34 species gathered on the Defiance to sign the Alliance of Free Worlds. At its center stood the humans, newcomers to the galactic stage who had done what ancient civilizations could not. They ask why we fought for strangers, Admiral Shin said at the ceremony. The answer is simple, because that is what humanity does. We see injustice, and we act. That is who we are.